Wow. Wow. If you look behind me, you see this incredible bima. On November 9th, 1939, that date should be familiar to you because a year before, in Germany and Austria, there was a night called Kristallnacht or Kristallnacht. It's called the Night of the Broken Glass. September 1st, 1939, the Nazis attacked the blitzkrieg into Poland. They took over Poland. On September 3rd, parts of this town was bombed. The Nazis moved in right away. They took over, and on November 9th, a little bit after they conquered this area, they burnt down almost all the synagogues in this town. This was one of them. It was known as the Old Shul. When it was built in the 1600s, it was known as the New Shul. And then they built other shuls that became known as the New Shul. So they called this one the Old Shul. We are standing and we daven today in the footprint of this synagogue. And the bima is the only thing that survived because it was made of brick. The synagogue itself was a wood edifice. Beautiful, but it was wood. Will burn down. And all over Poland, as we make our travels, we're going to go to different towns that the same thing happened. Not necessarily on November 9th, but think about this. The Nazis knew that a year prior, all over Germany and Austria, they got away with it. Kristallnacht. So, almost as a, we got you, they burned this synagogue and a few others in this town. These houses that we walked through and where we parked, it's all after the war. The Jews of Tarnow had no idea what was going to happen to them. All they knew that it was brutal. Already they had 2 years of hell being in their ghetto. There was work. We talked about these work labor forces, slave labor. And finally, the first deportation was to happen because you all know that the final solution to the Jewish problem at the Wannsee Conference was decided on in January of that year, 1942. So that whole year was the beginning of all these deportations to these death camps from the ghettos. The Tarnow ghetto was no exception. And in the brutality that the Nazis decided to do this, they took Polish police, they took Wehrmacht, which is the regular army, they took SS. Some of them were given liquor in order for them to do their job even better. And what they said is that you go in there, we have to take as many Jews as possible. We have a quota of about 20,000 that we need to take. And whatever you have to do, you have to do. And in that place where we were standing, 4,000 Jews were killed. In the mikveh that we showed you, if you saw it, people, 600 and 700 people were put into that mikveh, and they were like steamed to death, believe it or not. They put the steam all the way up, and the people suffocated and asphyxiated in there. Children in Tarnow itself were being swept up from their families and put on trucks. If people resisted, they took the children and they smashed their heads against walls. More than 2,000 were brought to a cemetery just outside, one of the cemeteries we saw when we came in, and they were killed there. And then they brought people here, to this place. And if you look over there, you get a better perspective of the different mass graves that existed here. So they walked the same path we just did. They were pushed, they were harassed, and they came here. And when the children were brought, they separated the children and brought the children to this area, a pre-dug pit, 5 or 6 pre-dug pits around us. And they were shooting people there and there and there and there. But here, they didn't want to waste their bullets on children. And they took children to the age of 14 and 15 and babies. And instead of shooting them, they smashed their heads against rocks and threw them into this pit. This was a pit. Meantime, all you hear is shooting around you. If you were a parent, your children were separated, you knew it was the end. The brutality, specifically in this area of Poland, was beyond anything you can think of. And this place in the forest is a holy place for us Jews. One little story. On June 11th, they were rounding up the children. They were taking children from parents' arms. There was a woman that had 2 little children on her side, a boy and a girl. One was older, one was younger. And a Nazi stopped his car. The 2 guards got out, grabbed the children, put them on the truck. And you saw the streets in Tarnow that the truck couldn't go so fast, so the mother was so shocked. She ran after this guard, banged on the driver's door. "Give me my children, give me my children." The guard just looked at her and goes, "Get away. Give me my children." He stops the truck. He gets out of the truck. And he says, "Which are your children?" Goes to the back. And he said, "These 2." Pulls them off. He said, "Which one do you want to save?" She had the gumption and the chutzpah to go fight for her children. Most others couldn't or wouldn't. And she goes, "How could you make me make that choice? These are my children. Give me my children." And the guard said, "No. You have 1 minute to decide. Which child are you going to take? Are you going to save the first child, the the child that all of us parents here know that that's the joy that we have. Any one of you that's a firstborn, you're a special child because you are our first child. Are you going to give that firstborn up, who you showered love and affection on? Or the second child, who's younger, who was much more inquisitive and who learned from their brother or sister? Which one are you going to give up? 30 seconds. The mom says, no, I want both my children. These are my children. You cannot take them. Decide now, or they both go. She took the older child. This mother did not survive. Her children did not survive the war. But we have eyewitness accounts of people that were in the street and told us about this that did survive. That's a choice no one ever has to make. But it had to be made thousands of times, all over Poland and in many places in Europe. We'd like to share with you a story that Eve Adler from Atlanta, who is on the green bus, who is going to read this story. Please pay attention. I think you'll understand.
Dear Mirala, I can't believe I have one night to stuff a lifetime of love into this letter. Tomorrow morning, if 4 a.m. can be called morning, I am giving you up. I am taking you, Mirala, to the back entrance of dear, brave Herman's grocery, and the child rescuers will be waiting there for you and the 32 other children under the age of 3. They'll inject you with a sedative so you won't cry, and then they'll slip off in the pre-dawn with you, my life, my love, out of this barbaric country to safety. We pushed it off, Mirala. We didn't want to believe we would have to give up our child, probably never to see you again. But this is the last child rescue. After this, there will be none left to rescue, because tomorrow, our informers tell us, is the last big roundup. Tomorrow they come for men, women, and children. And I've been convinced by these words spoken by our trusted informer, Herman, the brave Gentile doctor. Any child they take away either dies immediately or dies on the way to the death camp. The word death 3 times in one sentence. We were the last ones to be convinced to give up our child. He said, finally, with the deepest sadness in every exhausted wrinkle in his face, I cannot force you, but if you keep her with you, she will be dead in a month. They have no use for babies. She cannot work for them. If you want to give her to us, bring her to the back entrance of my grocery at 4 a.m. No belongings, whatever food you have. Goodbye. Mirala, do you see why I have to give you up? He said no belongings, but I will beg, I will plead that this letter be allowed to go, sewn into your undershirt. And then I will pray to God that the letter stays with you until you are old enough to read it. You must know that we love you. You must know why you are alone without parents, not because they didn't love you, but because they did. It's eerie to think that by the time you read this, I will probably be dead. That's what Herman says is going on. People either die immediately or on the way or after a week or 2 of forced labor and no food. But I won't have lived in vain, Mirala, if I know that I brought you into the world and you will live and survive and grow big and strong and you will be happy. You can be happy, Mirala, because we loved you. What makes a difference in the lives of adults, it seems, is if they had secure childhoods. Secure, with lots of love and acceptance and needs, fulfilled and predictable routine, and the like. You've had that up to this minute. You'll have it up till 4 a.m. But then you won't. Who knows who will end up taking care of you? Some family who will take you in for the money Herman will pay them? They will surely be kinder to their own than to you. Here is where pain mixes with rage. I rage at the animals who are making it possible for you to cry, and I won't be there to comfort you. But you will have this letter. and this letter will make you feel secure if God answers my prayers. You have us, Mirala. Even though you don't see us, we're with you. We're watching you and praying for you. Every time you have troubles, we are pounding on the door to God's very throne room, insisting on an audience and demanding mercy for our Mirala down on earth, alone, without her parents. And God will listen to us. We won't leave him alone until he agrees that you deserve health, love, and happiness. Mirala, you'll wonder what your first 2 years were like. You'll wish you could remember. Let me remember for you right now, tenderly, on this piece of paper. You like hot cereal in the morning with lots of milk and sugar. Except that there is no milk and sugar now, none in the whole city. But I make your cereal anyway, and you eat it with big smiles between every bite. Then you come ready for your nap, so I rock you, after putting the rocker where the sunlight will fall on it. I rock you until you fall asleep, and then I put you in my bed. You sleep well there. You like my smell. What will you smell tomorrow night? Surely nobody will rock you tomorrow, not even in the shade. Oh God, I cannot do it. I will do it. For you, Mirala, so you will have at least a hope for life. Mirala, do me a favor. After you've grown, after this dirty, nightmarish war is over, I know there will be those who underplay the tragedies going on here every day. They will say, a war is a war. It was just a war. Mirala, tell them about this agony. Tell them how you felt secure in my arms, rocking to sleep in the sunlight. Tell them how your father ran one night a year ago to get you medicine past sentries while breaking the curfew. He risked his life to ease your pain, Mirala. And now the three of us are being torn apart. Just a war? Tell them, Mirala, that all wars in the world don't add up to the agony in my heart right now as I write this. God, it's 2 a.m. already. Only 2 more hours with my love, my baby, my life, my Mirala. I'm going to hold you now, Mirala, for 2 hours. Your father and I are going to wake you, feed you, and tell you over and over how much we love you. You're barely 2 years old, but maybe, if God is good, maybe you'll remember it, and maybe you'll keep this letter until you're old enough to read it. There will be bad times for you, Mirala, I know. But just think about me holding you, rocking you to sleep in the sunlight. Keep that sunlight in your heart always. I love you. Your father loves you. May God help us all. Mama. From Mirala, she writes, miracles do happen. My mother's letter stayed with me, sewn into my undershirt, and now I am getting old myself and have decided to share it with you. After almost 50 years of keeping it private, why did I translate it from the Yiddish and decide to share it with you now? A few reasons. Firstly, one doesn't hear much about the Holocaust anymore very much these days. There are even those who claim it was made up. Not true. A brilliant Jewish ploy for sympathy. My mother asked me to remind you that it wasn't just a war. It was a monstrosity. Secondly, my mother's faith in God, even at that dreadful hour, never ceases to amaze me. Even though she was almost certain that she would soon die, as indeed she did, she believes firmly in God to whom she can turn, both before and after her earthly life ends. This strengthens my faith, and perhaps it will strengthen yours. And lastly, I know I'm from a different generation. Nowadays, I'm told all mothers work, but sometimes I look out my window and see little children, just 2 years old. That's how old I was when my mother was forced to give me up to strangers. And I look out my window and see these 2-year-olds cry because they want to stay with their mothers, but their mothers are putting them on the bus because they want to be free of them, and something doesn't seem right. You mothers who are lucky enough to have babies, raise them too. Don't throw them out before they're ready. Don't leave them before they're ready. Go now. Rock them in the sunlight. For my mother, Miriam Basliva. In my mother's letter, she didn't leave her name, but I always think of her as Liebe, love. I'm lucky. Many of the children rescued with me don't even know their own names.
So a reason people ask, why are we bringing toys? These children did not have toys. They never had a chance to play with toys, or if they did, they weren't able to continue playing with their toys.
People often ask us, why do we bring you here? Why do we take teenagers from the comfort of their homes, several thousand miles, and make them confront face to face these horrors, these tragedies? Isn't it enough to learn about it in school, to read a book, to watch a movie, to go to a museum, and even to hear from a survivor at home? I think by now, all of us are beginning to understand that until you stand under the Arbeit macht frei sign, until you stand by the bandstand and listen to Joe say, "This is where I stood, this is where I was brought," until you walk into Birkenau and walk for hours to understand the enormity of that place, until you stand in front of the boxcar where Hugo Lowy stood and died with his tefillin, until, as you will later today, stand with Sam at his house to see what he lost, and on Sunday when we go to Majdanek and stand with Max and have him say to you, "This was my barracks. This is where I was forced to go." Until you do that, you can't fully comprehend the enormity of the tragedy that happened here. In his last will and testament, Adolf Hitler wrote that he was about to commit suicide. He was going to die. But his dream was that after his death, his followers would continue the mission that he started to make the world Judenrein, free of Jews. That madman actually dreamed that after his death, people would continue his work. We bring you here to show him, to show them, and to show the world that that dream died with that madman in a bunker in Berlin. But our dream, a dream where Jews and everyone else has the freedom to live the lives they choose in peace and in tranquility, that dream lives on. And the dream lives on in each and every one of you. Your being here and your commitment to honor those who died here and those who survived here, that commitment is what gives the world hope for the future.
See them in 10 days.
and from the entire place, 17 people. The city Pinsk, 17 people survived the ghetto out of 30,000. But we ran, many ran. Why? Because the forests, very deep forests in Pinsk, this is Eastern Europe, in Belarus. It's right now Belarus. And it was thick, very thick forests for hundreds of kilometers. So they had where to hide. And that's how the partisans started to organize themselves and fight back. And 17 survived. We do have a book and the 17 all of them are in the book. Their pictures are in the book to show that it's true that only 17 survived.
It was for her when I said Kaddish. It was for the little Susie.
How old was she?
She was 7 months old.
7 months.
And she, we had a life. It doesn't make it right to kill anyone.
Right.
But they killed adults, old people, and they lived. They had a life.
Right.
This little baby didn't even live. She hardly knew that she was alive. And she never had a chance to become what she could have become. Had she been allowed to live. And even after all these years, and I was 8 years old, I was a little girl, so I didn't even feel the loss for a while. But now when I think back on it, it still hurts just as much as if it was yesterday. And it makes me very angry. Oh, I said that before in the last. That's what I said at the last
That's okay.
time I was on the
Get
march.
you
But
angry.
it's true. I am very angry. And I have an issue with God. And I know that I shouldn't.
Who
Can't
said you
help
shouldn't?
it.
You're allowed to be angry.
So I still have an issue with it. But my little grandmother who wore a shidel, who brought up 6 children without a husband because she was widowed when her youngest child was 6 weeks old. She brought them up alone, and she was a good, devout Jew, and she led an honest life, and she ended up in Birkenau. And it's just, it doesn't get any better. It doesn't. When you think about it, it doesn't get better.
It's not supposed to get better.
It gets worse as you come back here time and time
And
again.
when I come back, and this was bad because I never been to a place like that. We didn't come.
We've never been here before.
No, we were in Tikotsin,
Yeah.
which was a whole
a whole
town,
different
the whole
Tikotsin,
different.
right.
Yeah, it was a whole different.
That was
thing.
also adults, and
But-
it wasn't just for children.
But this is children.
It was a similar thing though. They took the whole community,
yeah, right.
400 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. There was no pit.
24.
Exclusive children pit.
You won't let it happen again. You won't let it happen again.
I know everyone kind of has like their little connection to the Holocaust, something they relate to, or something that kind of makes it very personal for them, and I never really had that. So when I came on the trip, I kind of expected to have like some kind of religious awakening, or like I'd feel like closer to God or something like that, but it never happened until today. And when we were at the children's grave, and I realized that that's what I connect to, and I want to do it like for them and for basically all the kids who didn't have a chance, who had their lives taken away from them way too early. So that's kind of like the personal thing for me now, and I realize that, and that's what I want to remember for them. So that's what I got.
Kind of the same thing as yesterday. Is when we were at the children's grave, all I was thinking about is my little brother, and how that easily could have been him, how that easily could have been like even my older brother or my sister or anyone, just like a kid who was innocent, who had nothing to do with anything with the war, but just, even though the adults were innocent too, just a kid who did nothing, doesn't even understand what's going on, and how somebody could be so brutal.
The children's grave in particular was very emotional for me.
Close.
And it was hard seeing a lot of my friends who were very emotional. I saw a lot of close people crying, and it was so spaced out that I couldn't be with everyone, and it was hard to see. And just the whole story with the mother writing the letter to the daughter really resonated with me, and it was very powerful.
So I'm lucky to have known most of the kids on this bus for quite a while. And for those who know me really well, they know that I'm not the biggest dancer. I'm not outgoing in that way most of the time. But today, when everybody was dancing and singing together, I've never felt more proud to be Jewish. I've never felt more proud of my heritage. And you know, we were talking with Sam, and he explains to us how important it is to be proud of who we are. And we've been taught that, and I've always wanted to feel that way, whether it's in school or anywhere else. But I've never had such a strong connection, and today I really felt, for the first time in my life, that I was really connected to my Judaism and to all my friends.
Throughout this journey, we've seen a lot of grief and a lot of sorrow, but there also is hope. Like Genya's story, how she got away and she was lucky, and how her parents got out quick. It kind of gave me a feeling that the Jews suffered a lot, but some Jews were lucky enough to get away, and even though they suffered from starvation and running, no like clean water or bathing, that even though that they had to flee, and they had to flee their homes that they've lived in for ages, they were still all united as Jews. So for me, that was one of the big things that hit me today. Genya's story really spoke to me, and I really appreciated that. Thank you.
This morning when we were all dancing, I felt really proud to be Jewish, and it was just incredible to me how we could be so happy and be so proud to be Jewish in a place that has such a dark history, and make something good out of it. And also, I just thought it was incredible going to Sam's house, because see someone who was kicked out of somewhere and be able to go back. I just thought that was really brave, and I was just amazed by his courage, and thought that was really incredible.
So Mary asked me today, she asked me a really tough question to consider. She said that if you could be reborn and then choose to be anything that you wanted to be, would you choose once again to be Jewish? And I told her, honestly, I don't know, considering all of our history and the suffering that our people have endured. And she said right away, I know I would, because I'm so proud of who we are and all that we've accomplished. And besides the obvious advancements that we've made technologically in Israel, and the Nobel Peace Prizes that our people have won, our tenets, the tenets of our faith are really morally superior, and that just really struck me.
What I was thinking about was when we walked into the forest, and we all had such good vibes. We were walking through a really nice trail, and then learning about all the atrocities that took place there. It's just really crazy to think about how it's such a beautiful place, something that crazy could happen. And I thought the symbolism behind that is pretty cool.
The craziest part today for me was just the fact that when we were walking through the forest, we had no idea where we were going. And it was such a pretty neighborhood, and we were all just walking with our friends. And then once we realized where we were, everyone just fell silent. And then after hearing that letter and hearing that the toys that we brought all the way from America were to be given to these children who are now dead and unable to play with them, that like really, really made me so emotional. And I thought that was like a great way to really like personalize the whole ceremony, I guess.
After we were at the children's grade, I was able to stand with Genya basically the entire time, and we were together as the letter was being read, and we stood there with each other and held each other, and we experienced a lot of sadness together. But what was really special to me was, and I feel that this is kind of what the trip is all about, is that after we felt that sadness, we also walked to the bus together along with a couple of girls from the blue bus. And as we walked together, we stopped talking about all the sadness and we started talking more about our lives now and what made us happy. And I realized how special it is to be able to stand here with Genya and to experience all of those things with her. And I've realized that this is something, the relationship that I've made with her and as well as everyone else here is something that's going to last for a very long time. Like Genya and I were talking about how we're going to see each other once we return because we live close to each other, as well as those other girls and obviously anyone else. And it was just very special to see basically the flip of emotion in such a short period of time and experience what really signifies what we were going through, as well as the appreciation of our lives now.
For me, hearing from Sam about the people who rescued him really reconnected me with some things that I learned from one of my professors. And that was the question of, during that time, would you have been a victim, a bystander, a perpetrator, or a rescuer? And my answer to that question every day when it was asked was always that I would never have had a choice. I would always be a victim. I was only one of 2 students in the program that were Jewish. And for me, that really hit home to hear about the rescuers.